Hey guys, I'm Ash Thorp, and I'm an illustrator and designer, and I work on films, and I'm taking a stab at drawing again and becoming an artist and illustrator. And this is my workshop tutorial for ImagineFX magazine. And want to thank Ian for reaching out to me and having enough faith in my abilities to try and expose a bit about my process and how I do things. Um, so yeah, let's dig in here. I should express that I usually start with thumbnails that I build in my sketchbook that are usually like about 1 inch by like half an inch. I like to draw like many small ones just to get the silhouette and the form and the composition down. To me, if something looks good in composition at the size of an inch, it'll look even better when it's blown up and has all the details and stuff. So I probably drew probably about like I don't know 15 or 20 different alterations and concepts and ideas for this. And my original concept I was going to do when I was talking to Ian about it was to do some sort of a Marvel character. He had seen my work that I did for Akira, and I think he wanted to see that style, but in more of a Marvel-based comic character. And I, having grown up on a healthy dose of comics, and I still do enjoy them. I'm actually refining my love for them and going back through all my old comic books and just still always just blown away by the amount of talent that's out there. But I've always been kind of a fan of Punisher. I had this one comic edition of Punisher War Journal, I think, and he's just a brutal badass, and I like that. I like characters that aren't perfect. I'm not a big fan of like Superman. I like characters that have flaws, like human relatable flaws, I suppose. But at the same time, I do like crazy fantasy, so I'm contradicting myself here. But the idea I was thinking is I wanted to do my own spin on the character Punisher, and I wanted to do it in a cyberpunk kind of a fashion. And I've been listening to a lot of Ridley Scott's commentary on Blade Runner and actually reading Neuromancer right now. So my mind is kind of caught up in that whole realm. And so I thought, hey, it would be kind of cool to take this guy and his character and kind of do him the way I would want to see him. No guns, and because I feel that guns are just they kind of become a bit overrated for me. And storytelling, they're kind of they end a story or they start a story in a sense, and I feel that the power that they have is a little too much. So I thought that it would be cool to kind of capitalize on the idea of having him just holding a bludgeoning object like a bat with nails. And I thought, what if in this future world that weapons are obviously outlawed and um, only the elite are able to possess these weapons, and it's based off of like fingertip or something that's like genetically coded to them and stuff. And he's got to do his own vigilante crime fighting with with what he's given and pipes and stuff like that. So I just thought it was really brutal. And there was just something about that. I always thought that he was a bit of a brutal character, and I really like that aspect of what his character is. He's just kind of a bit of a rogue, from what I remember, and it's been a while since I've actually jumped in and read one or many of Punisher comics, and I know there's been many different story adaptations and films and stuff like that, but this is kind of how I approached it, and this is I'm talking a little bit more about this rather than the what I'm doing here with the tool, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But what I want to get on here about is that it's not just about making art porn or visual porn. It's about making something cool and sustainable and interesting enough, and something that has depth. And capturing, like making a story, narrating a story, and uh, and getting deep inside the idea of what I am putting my time into and focusing on and stuff like that. So this is uh, this is kind of how I try to approach things, and I've actually recently found myself drawing again. I haven't drawn for years. I got kind of caught up doing design for films and stuff, and it's funny how fast time flies by, and I haven't really dedicated time or anything to being a proper artist again, and it's extremely hard, and I feel that my style shows it, that I make up for my lack of understanding things like anatomy and basic art concepts like lighting and structure and stuff, and I make up for that with the hopes that I can create a style that I will be able to still convey what I want. It's like anime, It's like it's not accurate really, but it's got such a cool style that it's convincing enough to be a storytelling device, and that's what I'm hoping to go for. So what I'm going back to is I do a ton of thumbnail sketches, and I had the idea that I wanted him to either just kicking some ass behind an alley or something, or kind of just watching the city, looking down upon it, kind of just waiting for something to happen, to jump down and start doing his thing. And this is kind of the power pose that I decided on. I had done a concept of him standing at the edge of a building, but I also had, this is what he's doing here, but I had many of those different stances and poses and stuff, and I think for the magazine article I'll try to scan those in and kind of present them in a somewhat presentable way. They're just a big mess actually. I just lay in bed, and I usually that's where I do a lot of my drawing in my sketchbook, because I just feel that I love that. That's where I come from. I come from that era of just drawing on paper. I'm an 80s kid. I'm only 30, but back in my day, we didn't have computers to draw on like this. So we didn't have this ease of technology and the tools that we have now that are readily available, which are great. I love them. I love um, creating things in digital, just because of the ease of use and the manipulation abilities. It's just phenomenal. But yeah, so here I'm going back and forth, and you'll see me go to full frame mode, and but to do that, and I often do it because the Cintiq, and I'll explain my setup here in a minute here, but my Cintiq is a 21 UX, and I like to see things kind of big when I draw. I like to treat it like it's naturally like I'm just drawing on a big sheet of paper, because that's kind of how I like to approach it, just as if I was drawing normally. Analog style, I guess if you would say, not digital. And so I'm just I'm trying to capture the energy from one of the poses that I did, the silhouette or the thumbnail sketch. I'm trying to capture that digitally, and it's a fine line. It's a fine line that I find that I have a hard time trying to ride that balance where um, when you over render or you over put information into something, you really run the risk of making your work very flat and non-dynamic. And I'm a big fan of figure drawing and line energy and what that gives me, as a fan of that type of art. And knowing that, I really try not to make my art flat, and it's a constant battle um, with creating energy and a beauty of energy, I suppose, creating something that has it possesses a flow, basically. And I'll go into some other stuff. Let me explain my setup. So I got a 30-inch Apple monitor. I use a Macintosh computer, um, And so I have a 30-inch monitor, and below that's my keyboard. And then I have a Wacom Intuos 4 large. I think it's a large one. And for a long time, I used to just draw everything on this, and I'll explain a little bit why I don't necessarily do that all the time anymore. And then to the left of this setup, I have my Cintiq. I have a 21UX. It's the older model, and I like it just fine. And I have that on an Ergotron. I think that's what it's called, Ergonom or whatever. Arm. It's like this arm that I'm able to lift it and move it around at will to help. So so I'm not just sitting all the time, because these drawings can sometimes take a bit of time. I mean, even designing and stuff and all this stuff for these films I work on, I try to switch up my position because my back, you know, goes out faster than I would hope I want it to. And so that's my setup. I have I try to spend a lot more time drawing on the Cintiq now. When I first got it, I actually didn't even use it. I was so used to my Intuos and drawing on there. But there's a great disconnect from drawing on my Wacom, uh, the Intuos, and then actually drawing physically onto the thing. Um, I like them both. I think they're both serve certain purposes. I kind of like the looseness and random accidents that I get from drawing on the Intuos, but I feel that with this kind of style that I draw in, it just lends itself to having a little bit more precise lines and energy and flow. And so I feel that I try to capture that by using the Cintiq. The Cintiq is a really good tool. And so yeah, right now I'm hitting the F key to get the most canvas space out of what I'm looking at, and I often flip between this. You guys will see this, and this is obviously sped up at 3 times the speed. So it's you guys, I don't want you guys to sit through the whole piece, obviously, because it's a bit long. I think I spent a total of like about 10 hours total from start to finish, all the way out to color. But I'm just using a basic brush, 60, and I think I'm in about 50 to 13 pixels, I guess. And I like it. I like the way it dithers out a little bit. It feels like a natural pen, and I kind of like the chisel approach that it has, because it kind of leaves a cool um, tail, I guess, on the line. And I like it. I've tried a bunch of the different brushes and stuff, and this one emulates more of a pen, which is what I like, because that's what I'm going for here. I'm just trying to emulate what I would draw, how I would draw with my pen and paper and stuff. So, and I just adjust the size, and the way I adjust the size is I just said there's a hotkey. I don't even know what these things are. They're right next to the P. They're the right of the P, and you hit the left one, it goes down in size, and hit the right one, it goes up in size. Because it's like a cursor or something like that. But yeah, so I kind of flip between that, and I try to keep. One thing is I try to keep the size of the brush very consistent throughout, um, because if I were to draw on paper and then like pretend that I would be able to just double the size of the paper and go in there and draw even more detail on lines, it would it somehow when I do that it feels weird. So I like to keep it all feel like I've used a similar with a pen, I guess. There's 2 layers of it. There's like a thick layer, and then there's a thin layer. Right now I'm just trying to fill everything in. I'm trying to capture the lines that I really liked from the loose sketch. Like I said, it's all about that energy. I always fear that I'm going to overthink it and overdo it, and oftentimes it's good to um, take your flatten your layer, whatever you got to do to get it all, so you can rotate it or select all the layers and hit Command T. That's for Mac. I don't know what it is for Windows. Hit Command T, and then you can flip it horizontally or vertically, whatever your layout is, and then your brain will automatically see the things that you've been lying to yourself about, problems that you have. And I'm going to talk a bit about that too. Is I'm constantly failing with this stuff. It's never the way that I necessarily intend it to be. I'm constantly trying to um, make up for what it's lacking, I suppose. I'm my own worst critic, and I only expect myself to do the best that I can every time I do something. And and I'll talk a little bit about that and why I think there's a couple really good tips when you consider doing this stuff, and just tricks that I've learned along the way from other artists or just from myself from just late nights and exposing myself to countless failures. Right now, that right arm, I hate it. It's gonna, I'm gonna fix it later, so don't worry. But that's, and then even the left arm, the forearm, it's so limp. It's got no meat to it. And the part of me, I wanted to have I wanted one of his arms to just kind of feel like he just, he really exerted himself, and he's can barely hold on to some, like, he's exhausted, but at the same time he's still out there doing his job or whatever he thinks his job is, which is, I don't know what that is. It's fighting crime or whatever you want to call it. Maybe he's a hooligan and he's a jerk and he's just going around and beating people up just because. Yeah, I haven't really figured it out. As you can see, I drew the Punisher logo, my own version of it, I guess you'd say, on a separate layer because at this point, um, I had been doing a lot of thinking, and I talked to my wife about it, and I talked to my friends about it, and I decided that I think it was going to be it would be cool to do my own character. My wife was really pushing me on it. She felt that I do that it's time for me to start trying to focus on my own stuff, and she's right. I think it's kind of it's cool. It's fun, and I'm going to talk more about that as we go along the path of this creation, so you can see what and how I approach these things. Right there, I just took the lasso tool, and I just hit L. I usually just hotkey everything, but I hit the lasso tool to kind of move and adjust things, and I do that quite often just to readjust things and get the size of things right. Right here, I made a notes layer. This is for me to correct and change things. Often when I do a sitting of art, and before I leave it, I must make sure that I kind of approached everything the way that I want, and so that the next day that I start the project or I go back to it, I don't just hate it and then feel defeated. A really big important thing I think with being an artist and doing your own stuff is it's very vital to never leave a piece unhappy. That if that means you're not going to get much sleep or whatever, I don't, you know, art is forever. Pain is temporary, so you got to do what it takes to make it good. And right now I hate that arm. I can't wait till I fix it. It's coming. It's coming. So I'm shifting the opacity of my notes, and I'm going back to the original line work, and I'm erasing bits, and I'm adding all these details to add into these little things. I thought it would be cool if he had some kind of Inspector Gadget kind of shit going on where he's got also like a knife still protruding from his leg, like he just doesn't care. He's so hopped up on uh, his endorphins and testosterone that it doesn't matter. He's just out for blood. And he's just that kind of guy. He's a superhero guy. Um, I thought it would be really cool to kind of have just some barbed wire wrapped around him. I thought how brutal that would be. And I probably should have looked at reference for barbed wire. I didn't, and I just kind of winging it and having fun with it. I think it's kind of similar. The design of it's kind of similar, so hopefully it's not too inaccurate. And if it is, who cares? It's my world, and I'm just creating what I want. And I feel like it looks cool, and sometimes that's all that matters. As long as it's kind of fitting what it is, it looks cool, and it's part of his repertoire or his outfit. And yeah, I mean, imagine getting kneed by this dude, and that'd be horrible. And I thought it'd be cool to put it on his bat too. I thought it'd be cool to put it on his right arm, and then I was like, nah, it's too much. And I think that's what makes good art sometimes is when you can tell that the artist understands his restraint. when he creates. And I think that comes with the level of maturity. And I'm not saying that I'm mature at all, at all. I'm just saying that these are things that I notice in other artists that I really admire. I think that's one really important thing to do as an artist is to observe the world and people and other artists around you and acknowledge the things that you love, but also be able to critique them to no end because it will really help you understand how to create those same things in your own work and to focus on making those better. So I'm not really happy with the composition. I'm going to start switching it up here. I was originally going to do this dimension, this size, and I decide later on as I get into color phase, I started to hate it. I started to hate the composition, and there it is. I figured, you know what? The composition's just I just pulled it back a bit. I didn't. He was flooding the image. He was like a baseball card character. He was too special, I thought, and I felt let's push him back a bit. Let's move him around. And I'll talk about the backgrounds too. So changed the camera angle, and I'm really into film, and I'm actually working on some of my own with a friend of mine. And so where I look at things and I approach them as if I would in film, and I try to think about how like lenses would work and this and that and the setting and all that junk. And so this is me messing around with that. So this is the first time I've ever took an honest stab or an approach at backgrounds. So I was kind of kicking myself in the ass because I didn't have a lot of time, and I felt like a lot of pressure on myself because I feel that I'm just now discovering myself as an artist again, and I don't know if I'm good enough to make a workshop for the magazine. I don't know if I'm constantly thinking, worrying, and I'm constantly thinking like, how am I going to explain this stuff to people if I can't even really explain my own process? I like to have a lot of random accidents when I create. I think that there's a beauty in that, and that's what's cool about digital is really just you can go back and manipulate and mess with stuff, and it's a good and a bad thing, obviously. But I'm gonna go back to the background. So I felt that I kind of got a flash of this background. I often see things kind of they come in flashes in my mind when I get like kind of a vision of what I'm looking at and what I'm trying to do. And that was I felt like man, it would be kind of cool to have him in the background. And I've never done a background really before, but I thought, you know what, let's just go for it. And I figured what's better? It's better just to go for it, and approach it like the character. And I gotta say, I mean, it was tough, but it was fun. Um, and I feel that there's a certain level of um, I actually felt it was the background actually saved the piece, and I felt that the background had more characteristics and character than the main character, and I just opened my eyes up to the fact that um, backgrounds are awesome, and it was really cool to discover that in this piece. And um, I think from here on out, I'm probably gonna try to put my characters in backgrounds and see if I can make things work still, And for the background, I thought, let me just stick to this, Blade Runner-esque kind of hodgepodge of Asian influence and um, just a just technology, human mess, human just grossness, just junk, junk attached to a building, and he's there. He's kind of camouflaged into it. He is one with the city, and it's kind of like Batman perched atop a building in Gotham with all the uh, art Art Deco, I guess you would say. But this guy, he's no longer the Punisher, although he's got it on his shirt. I take that out here, and I just started creating another character in my head. I felt that it would be cooler to create my own guy, um, and uh, and big cheers to my friend Danny Levisi and Dave Raposa and Anthony Burns and my wife. They all are big supporters of me doing what I'm doing here, and I appreciate you guys. You guys' support means so much to me, and I think through that it's allowed me to just kind of open up. And I think as an artist and a creator, just the going back to that, I think going back to the where this all comes from. Yeah, as a kid, I drew a lot. I drew as much as I can remember. That's all I would do. I wasn't really into sports, although I could have played sports just fine. I just was really into art. I loved just escaping reality to find myself creatively, and I just have a lot of stuff in my head. And doing art is almost like therapy to get the ideas and the things out of my head, because all day long I'm thinking of it, and I often dream things. And this project, I had a lot of stress and pressure on because I wanted to just make something special and cool. And there's nothing worse than an artist sitting there at a blank piece of paper going, okay, this has to be great, and then not knowing. I'll explain some technical stuff here. So to make a straight line, this is something that I found along the way, and I think I might have found it from another artist, but it saved me a ton because that was my big quorum, a big problem with digital art and drawing on my Cintiq or my Intuos 4 is that I couldn't get a straight line properly. But if you hold down Shift and put your pen down and then put the pen down where you want it to be, it connects the line, and then you're able to easily have a straight, perfect line, which to me is awesome because uh, the building has to have that kind of language, it has to have a truancy to it, and it gotta have it has to be convincing that it's structurally based, so it has to have straight lines and all that kind of stuff. So that's a tip. If you guys didn't know that, that's a real big lifesaver for me at least. These are just little things, and I kind of want to explain too that I get a little crazy with the coloring, but the most part, the line work, which I end up noodling way too much, I spend oh, way too much time on, is like at least half the time is just getting all my ideas out and really dressing the character and the world the way that I want it to be. And you know, a human's face has so many details. What about a building, And that's what I'm just getting at, and I was having so much fun because I was like, wow, what if there's something low here? And maybe there's like, air conditioning and heating units fighting for real estate on the side of this building next to all these neon signs, and it's kind of just hodgepodge together and jumbled, and there's wires and lines of things and pipes and all the cool stuff that makes things intriguing and interesting, and that lends itself to, I guess you'd say, my insecure drawing style, which is just flooded with detail, because maybe I'm trying to make up for my lack of understanding of a certain thing. And honestly, I'm just having a lot of fun, And so this is just me. I mean, although it's all the stress aside and stuff, I'm just thankful to be able to sit at home and just draw. It's a real pleasure. It's a total blessing. Yeah. So here, so this layer is just me drawing the line work from behind the background. So I'm going in there and fixing his arm now. And see, I made a layer named Notes. I often go back and forth, and I just like to have a layer that I can just go and paint stuff really loosely. And when I do this, I squint my eyes and I push the image back so I can find that silhouette. And I try to get that energy. I just want something. I want to fix it because it's just bothering me. But the piece is coming together for me. I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel the weight of his body. He carries a certain weight, and also doing like a Dutch angle, a Dutch cut, um, setting the axis of the frame off. It really, for me, it helped a lot because, he's just standing there. He's not doing anything special, and sometimes that's kind of cool to have that because he's got a presence that is formidable, I suppose, and he doesn't need to necessarily be like drop kicking dudes' skulls in, not yet. Maybe I'll draw that, but I also want to have a piece that it's just him, and he's uh he's just being himself, I guess, and either he's being a jerk or what. I haven't figured out yet. I'm trying to work out that story. But here I'm using the same brush, but I put the transfer option on the brush setting in the brush tab right there. That allows me to have an opacity shift based off the pen pressure, and it helps me just kind of sketch. It's like using some form of charcoal, I guess, or not charcoal, something that would be able to, yeah, I guess you would say charcoal, because you need our graphite, I suppose. And the more pressure you put, the harder the opacity, and vice versa. But and I was like, maybe it'd be kind of cool if he's holding like a thread, and I think I originally was gonna put like some nuts and bolts. Maybe he just uses it to just whap on people's heads or something. I wanted him to have another weapon, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't want it to be like an obvious weapon. For a minute there, I was gonna give him an axe, but I felt that was too axe murdery and it was kind of cheesy. And then I was like, well, let me give him like some big spike coming out of that, and I was like, nah, it's just too much. Didn't need it. Uh, I think that's okay. I just wanted to have a little bit of conviction with the work. That part of that jacket was bothering me too. His arm sitting behind there is a little bit of that side jacket should come out because it's hidden his ribs. And I don't know a lot about anatomy, obviously. I have books on it, and I've sat there and I've redrawn the stuff and tried to understand the muscle groups, and I get it. I just drawing things perfectly never really, um, and it was never like my thing really. I think I tried it and I had fun with it, um, but this to me right now, as I'm drawing and finding myself artistically, this is the style that I like to create in. I like to draw like this. It is like it just kind of naturally flows with it. I just like all the detail and finding every little nook and cranny of each surface, finding it loosely as I just kind of skim across. I often look at artists as being, and this hope this isn't an insult because I relate myself to it too, but those old ribbon scanner or old ribbon printers, the back and forth, and they're just incredibly slow. And I think of artists like myself, just like this is like the world's slowest printer. But what's cool is this printer has a mind, and obviously that's what makes it so cool. But what it is, I think it's just funny. It's just looking at this in 3 times the speed, or maybe a little bit faster. You can see just how much time it takes. His boot, I thought it'd be cool to have some laces, lace up boots, kind of, and I didn't know if I felt this, it felt too feminine, but I didn't really think it was, I thought it was a cool texture, and I thought why not? You could have like some cool combat boots, and his left foot bothers me. He's like pigeon-toed. I fix that later on, so don't worry. It was bugging me. I'm doing an outline right now. Some of the times the background and him get lost, so I go back and forth and kind of pop that out, and I just vary the weight or I press a little bit harder on the brush, and that allows me to kind of capture that. So I'm like, cool, he's done. And if you can see, it's just like through a variance of different layers. I will do like a notes layer when things don't work out for me. I go back, make changes, then I lower the opacity of that layer on the notes, and then I go and go back and do all the line work. And it's a cool process. I think it works because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that energy back, because I get so nerdy about the line work, and I think it's because I'm new to this style that I'm trying to find myself within, that I lose sight. I lose sight of what the energy was. And like I said, I love energetic. I love art that has that, just that feel. I love art that has that connection, that vibe. I find it fascinating, and it's just one of those things that I try to be cautious of as I'm creating. with everything, like look at the wires and the way that they're falling and draping. I wanted there to be an energy. I didn't want there to be these stagnant, boring, following the grid basically back there. Maybe for another project, just not for this. I wanted this to feel very lived in. That's one thing I love about Ridley Scott's movies, Alien and Blade Runner are some of my favorites. Is that he created a world with this team that he had that was very lived in. Same with George Lucas and his first Star Wars. It was a dirty space, it was a cool, lived in space. It felt more relatable and truthful and honest. And as a fan, I like that. And so these are what I'm talking about. And I might not necessarily be talking about all these little bits and details about the piece and particular technique wise, but what I'm getting at is I'm trying to think about all these things that I'm learning from everything that I study. Um, Commentaries from film and reading books and the science fiction novels that I read and how authors paint a scene, picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to create a world, that this guy lives in, and each piece plays a role, all these wires. What do they do? Do they have like a server that they go to, or are they sending electricity, or are they what are the purpose of it, and I think that once I started thinking like that as an artist, as an illustrator or creator, it's like that's when everything starts to really click. At least for me, everything started to have a lot more meaning. It wasn't just about doing art that looked cool. It was about making art that looked cool, that had meaning, which is a double-edged sword, which is awesome. It's just that's the way to do it, and I think that's what I admire and love about a lot of the artists that I aspire to be like, or that I love, and that I'm a big fan of their work, is because they kind of take it to that next level where they're not just drawing, they're thinking. And if there's one thing you can learn is that there's only one you, and knowing that value is great. It's phenomenal. Here I was thinking, oh, wait, maybe there's like maybe for some service people they have like a ladder or something to get up here to, maybe do some maintenance or adjust something up here and stuff. So there's a little bit of a evidence of some sort of a ladder structure or something. And I also changed the size of him going up too. I wanted him to feel a little bit bigger. That's me being cheesy. I think he doesn't need to be bigger. I think that was kind of a silly call on my behalf. But heroes or villains or whatever. I like the idea that the larger than life, that that just bigger, bigger than the average person. And in my mind, it was like, wow, what if he was like, close to 7 feet? That's a big person. I mean, myself, I'm 6'2", and I think I've seen like one 7-foot guy before, and that's a tall dude. It's a tall guy, and that person has a lot of presence. And the only way to base the weight of this guy, was the size of the bricks, because the size of a brick is a universal thing. I think most of us have seen a brick and understand this and what size it is. So I wanted to adjust it later on. So I also fixed the arms, as you can tell. I'm satisfied with them now, and I still have that same energy of he's not standing there like clenching, all tense. He's kind of just casually just browsing. Another design feature too that I decided on early on is I wanted him to have kind of like that Star Trek visor glasses kind of look. No eyes, no empathetical eyes, or no. I didn't want a easy route to the path to his soul. I wanted to have him be a bit soulless, a shell of a human. The eyes are the gateway to our souls, and I wanted to take that out. I thought that would lend itself to have some kind of really interesting, just interesting. I think they pulled it off in Star Trek, so why can't I figure it out? So I felt it was interesting. You can do a lot without it, but the eyes are definitely, they're an amazing tool to use when creating illustration. They say so much. if you get them right, you got the 90% of the illustration figured out. You get that conviction of emotion, you know. So yeah, I'm just kind of going crazy on here. I regret later on doing the signs so crappy. The art the stuff I'm drawing right here, I feel that I should have used. It looks horrible. I should have drawn it with more straight. What happens here is it becomes toonish and it doesn't have that same structural hard edge. It doesn't need to, but it should have some more. It just right now it feels just super wonky, and I end up fixing that too later on. There's a lot of things that I just go back and forth, and to be honest, guys, I was a little overwhelmed to get this done. I have a lot of other projects going on, and a lot of things going on that I just. But this was really important to me. It's just a lot of late nights. I think a lot of these are me drawing from like 11 o'clock at night to like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I'll do like 3 or 4 nights of that, and then until it's done. Um, and I didn't want to sacrifice. I knew right off the bat I didn't want to just make something. I didn't want to just sacrifice, and I didn't want to be rude to you guys or the magazine. I felt it was an honor to be asked to do something like this, and I felt like I really wanted to outdo myself, which is why I'm doing the background and over obsessing about all these silly details. But I really feel like it helps save the piece. I think if it was just him standing there with smoke behind him, that would be a cop out. That'd be lame. Anybody can do that. I don't think anybody could see this world that I'm seeing right now. And that's kind of a gift, isn't that? You know, as artists, that's our gift. We can create worlds and portals into our minds that, you know, would never be seen by somebody else. And that's to me is one of the strong suits of being an artist, being a creative person is being able to kind of create things for people to inspire them or to make them appalled or whatever, you know. At least just emotionally interactive with it, you know. So, and I go back and forth, and I will go and fix a lot of these things. I'm just trying to figure out what certain things do. Up top here, it's funny how I didn't even realize this until I look at it now, but why I left brick there on the bottom, I guess he's got to be high enough where they wouldn't want to put the signs that low because of the ledge would cover its visibility. And it's funny how I subconsciously just kind of figured that out. This is the first time that I'm seeing that, actually, that me doing that, why I did that. I would think they use up like maybe 30 or 40 stories or something. And for a minute there, I was actually going to detail the shit out of a crazy background with all kinds of stuff, but I felt like I had accomplished what I was going for, and I didn't want to just be a super nerd and just go off the deep end with detail, and just sometimes that gets annoying too when I see an artist just I could tell that he or she has just gone too far, and it's just kind of becomes annoying. I apologize also for all the movement. I like to move the piece around a lot when I work, and even when I would draw on paper, and it looks like it's all shifty and crazy now because it's sped up so fast, but I apologize if it's causing people a hard time figuring out what the heck I'm doing. But I'm still doing the same thing I did the first minute I started talking about this project, and I'm just doing the line work and just focusing on that. And I'm using the same brush. And when I do the real line work, I have it on a separate layer. This one's BG background. So, and I'm just going back and forth and adjusting the size and figuring out things. And a lot of this stuff gets lost when I do color. And once I get to the color stuff, it's coming up in a bit here. I hate it, to be honest. And it was a real pressure case for me when Ian had reached out to me to do this. I mentioned earlier he saw my Akira stuff, and I felt, well, he wants to see that same style, and even those pieces were such a pain to color. I never really had any formal training with color, and color to me is it's a challenge because I like really crazy color combinations with my art. I don't like to just solve it easily. I like really just clashing stuff to me, and that with all this detail and madness, it becomes a total nightmare of a mess instantly. So I'm going to go through a lot of things with that, but what I'm going to touch on is I spend so much time on the line work. I spend, just over half the time on the line work. And so when I go into doing the color, I'm trying to find that really fine line between doing the color and then also um, not losing this platform that I created, because I feel that I could just finish this and leave it black and white, but that wouldn't do the workshop any good. That's only like half the workshop. So I felt like I owed you guys the whole path. And it was painful to trying to get there, to be honest. And I'm being blunt, I'm being real, because I don't like to um, sugarcoat anything. Feel that it's good to be art honest, and that's one thing I love about art. It's you can tell right away when somebody knows what they're doing and doesn't, and it's art is one of those really just honest things in this world. Going around and highlighting the outside of him, giving him a broader stroke, and I'm just pressing a little bit harder, and I've just upped the size of the brush a little bit. But back to the idea of art is you can instantly tell if somebody's cheating, you know? At least I can. Or when they've copied somebody, or they don't know anatomy like myself. Like a person that really kills it at anatomy, you could look at this and be like, oh, this is not wrong and blah blah. And and that's what's cool about art. It's honest, you know. Unless you get into the contemporary, subjective stuff that quote unquote fine artists do, and that's cool. That's also cool. But I think that with this kind of stuff and trying to execute a world that lives within the reality that we live within, gravity and humans and our problems and our structure and stuff like that. And you know, if I were to give this guy like a really huge thumb, people would be like, well, this looks cool, but you drew his thumb wrong, you know. And it's been really cool too to have friends that I can just send these things off to when they're rough and get back and forth and see what they think and if they have any issues or problems with the piece. So it's been really cool to have peers that I really appreciate their help. It's a vital thing. I think that's one part of being a successful person is surrounding yourself with people better than you. You'll learn things faster because you're going to constantly be comparing yourself to them, and not in a bad way, not in a competitive way. Just you want to grow. I was just grabbing certain bits of the layers using the lasso tool, doing the same kind of thing. So brightening up a couple layers and sections and stuff. So sometimes I'm not sure about what I'm drawing on that one thing, so I go and kind of break things down into sections and stuff. So because I don't want to just flatten it all. I want to have that security blanket, I guess, and perhaps when I get good enough, I can just go straight to it and go crazy. That's really when you become a master, I guess. I think Mobius does that, but he's also drawn, thousands and thousands of pieces. So this is one of my first pieces my first attempts at this kind of thing, and the Akira stuff. So I'm going through and using the lasso tool and just filling in the shape. What I'm going to do here is I'm making mats. I'm taking the information that I want so I can isolate him from the background. And my process is a bit mad and it gets kind of crazy. I try to explore and try a bunch of different things, and I shouldn't have with this piece. I should have just maybe followed what I've done prior, but the end result is fun. And I'll talk a bit about the happy accidents because I feel that I thrive. I love those. I love digital for that reason because you can have those happy accidents and just have a combination of layers. It's like you're dipping your photo back in the emulsion to get a different exposure, and each time it has something new to give you. And I treat that I treat this stuff the same. So what I did is I did it kind of backwards to make the mat. So what I did is I hold Command and I just clicked on that layer and it selected the selection I just made. And then I filled that whole area and I made a mask. There's a little mask button down there on the lower middle area of the layer window. And yeah, I just made a mask with that, and then now I can go in and paint white, white reveals and black conceals. I think that's the way it works. But I just paint white in there, and I kind of get all the details of the nails and the string. And then so I took the nuts off the string, or these whatever they were, bolts, and I decided to just have like maybe it's like a shoelace of a lost kid or something, and that might be leading into more or less what the story's about, and you guys will start to see as things start to manifest themselves in the story, and the illustration itself kind of takes on a life of its own. Certain things I try not to fight. Narrative and telling stories, I kind of like to approach it organically, not to use that word loosely, but I like to, I don't know, just approach it in a, I don't like to control it, basically. I like to see what happens from it, and that's another thing I love to do is develop stories. And it's one thing I like to spend time in investigating and understanding and learning. And right now I'm making a mat for the background. Look at these crazy colors. You can tell I'm a fan of this stuff. I'm 80s kid, so like these ridiculous colors. But now these are just the mats, so they're just me messing around. I apologize too if I sound sleepy. I haven't gotten much sleep. I've been working a lot, so I don't necessarily always sound monotone. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning at my house, and I'm not trying to wake up everybody. But I really I felt it was important to do audio track over all this so that if anybody ever watches this or they're interested, they can kind of follow along this ridiculous journey that I set out for myself to figure out. And yeah, you're gonna start seeing me fail. I'm testing things out and just trying weird uh, obstacles and stuff. And I'm using the same brush um, as I have been the whole time, just making the size a bit bigger. I like this brush, you know. I feel it does everything I need. I'm not trying to do anything other than just put line weight down. So and it's working. It's working for me. So if it isn't broken, don't fix it. This is one thing I do sometimes too in the middle of a piece, especially when I do color. I just throw a curves layer, and the curves layer is right next to the mask layer in the layer palette, and I just try to mess with it a bit, pull the blacks out, and make it feel a little bit more cross-processed and a bit dodgy, and give it kind of a little an odd look. You know, I have all this crazy line art I wanted to see what I can do with coloring it. You know, and like I said before, I'm not trying to hide the lines. I'm trying to accentuate them. So all my values, they can't go darker than the lines because then I lose all that work. It's a bit of a shame. It's kind of a stupid way to work sometimes, to be honest. It sounds negative or I'm being harsh, but and maybe it's because I'm just really harsh on myself. I want the best work that I can make always. I've decided, ever since I just started to draw again, that I would just do my best to finish everything that I start and make everything as best that I can. Um, no more excuses, no more messing around. It's time for me to take this seriously, and this is my attempt at that. This is kind of a cool thing too. And this, you'll notice I use hue saturation a ton because I like to just mess with things. And in hue saturation, if you hit the colorize in the lower part of the window, you can actually adjust everything, the value and the hue. And so I did that with the background. I felt like it was competing with him too much. And all this whole section right here, until we get to the other part is just me messing around. Like I said, I was a bit insecure to get this done because I never had an audience this big. And honestly, I think I'm probably a bit unknown because I haven't, at least in this field, I'm a bit more known in my film industry section for user interface and design and stuff, and title sequence concepts and stuff, but not for illustration necessarily. And so I'm just kind of going out, going crazy, and just having fun. And I find a couple interesting things along the way. Um, and you see how I'm keeping layers here. I'm kind of bad at that. I don't care about file size, to be honest. They get a bit crazy. But I like the idea of being able to go back and forth and mess with things. I think I need to get better at color. I should be able to see it in my head a little bit better. In some pieces I do, and I think those pieces I always like them because I I didn't fight it necessarily. I just kind of went with it, and I like that. But it's not always like that. And this piece is a prime example because I'm honestly just kind of flying with it. It's like it's taking me along for a ride, and I'm not taking it for a ride, and that's a big problem because as you'll see, I'll become incredibly indecisive and really self-doubting as I develop it. But I feel that towards the end, and when I finish it, I'm somewhat happy and satisfied. So I'm talking to you guys through it, and I hope I don't sound negative, and I don't sound like a uh, repeated record, uh, scratch record, or whatever you say, however you say that. I'm when I, this part is I'm trying to express what I was going through when I was creating it, and what I was going through is a lot of self-doubt and wondering, is this gonna look good? At what level do I take this? Do I just leave the background? Do I fill it in? And I ultimately decide to just go all out because, like I said earlier, this is how it's gonna be done. I gotta just go for it, and I gotta try and match the level of the guys that I admire. This is me trying to figure a little bit of lighting, and you can see I did a little gradient. It's up and above all of them, and so all these layers live within this group that's covered by a mask, so I can kind of just work freely in here, so I don't have to like be concerned about every little movement that I do, so I can kind of go crazy. And I use the gradient to lock him down and put him more in the environment. Right now I'm just kind of messing around, doing slight little bits of color and value, and I'm just messing with the opacity, and I'm not liking it obviously because I'm going to go back and mess with it, and I decide on a completely different color palette towards the end here. But yeah, it was fun and just trying to figure out what it is. I didn't want it to be a coloring book because that's what it looks like right now, color by numbers. And these are the things I think about. I'm probably a bit too harsh, but I really just, I feel that there's a responsibility when you're creating something, and it leads to your expectations to do better than you had the past piece, and that kind of fuels me. It sabotages me along the way, but it fuels me because it pushes me to make things better. I'm like, yeah, alright. Going through, messing with it, turning on layers, turning them off. Here's me grabbing some texture and putting it in because I don't really like the surgical cleanliness of the lines in digital art, to be honest. Some people pull it off perfectly, and hats off to them. They do great job of it. But I like the just that rough texture coming from the ink bleeding into the reservoirs of the paper and the thread of the paper. And to achieve that, I kind of cheat it with um, textures, and that's another thing that's a fine line. It's a fine line on that because it can instantly become gimmicky and cheesy, and that's not what I want. And So here's the background. So I have three sections. I have the background, the furthest background, and then I have the guy. And I just got a layer. I think I labeled this sketch, and it's just me quickly, just really roughly filling in the colors and stuff because I felt like, you know, it's not working for me just to leave this one color. I owe it to myself to make this better, and to you guys, and to show you kind of the pain of doing it. It's me taking the hue saturation and just adjusting it a bit. Um, Color balance, it's another thing I like to mess with. You see how much of a different mood? It completely changes it and throws it all off. And honestly, guys, this is just me. These are just things that I found along the way. A cool way to kind of tinge things down and mute the whites, make them feel more earthly, is to take like a yellow or a warmer color like that and set it to multiply, and obviously take the opacity way down. And I kind of like that, you know, like maybe if I was doing like the inside pages of the comic book, maybe the whole thing would have this color theme. It'd be kind of cool. But for me, I decided to keep going. It's just me adjusting it, messing with it, taking the blood and kind of making it crazy. I really love putting blood on my characters. I feel like it's another tool to ground them in that reality. You know, we all bleed, and I think superheroes and crime fighters and stuff, they should bleed. You know, like I love Alan Moore's Watchmen, and I love how he approaches superheroes and makes them bleed. You know, I think it's good. That's what makes Batman like one of my all-time favorites, because he does. He's a human, and that's why I'm not a huge Superman fan. And I apologize to Superman fans if you don't be offended by my opinions, please. Um, this is me just trying to find the value back there. I'm trying to find, um, kind of pushing it. So I'm like, okay, well, I got the highlights in there. That looks cool. Let me try and do like just slightly darker, or not even darker. If I look at it, it's maybe just a tinge darker in the value range. Another thing that I should do that I didn't do enough in this piece, and you'll see it, or maybe you won't, maybe I cut it out, but it's when I put things to full black and white. Um, when I put a black and white filter over the whole thing, I can instantly see what values are working or not, because color for me is completely deceptive. It's such a bugger. It's just so tricky, and it bugs me. So that's another fail-safe thing. So if your values aren't working, turn it black and white, and you'll instantly be able to tell. And this is the thing that I love about digital. You know, when I used to paint like with acrylics and stuff when I was like in college, it was you couldn't do that, you know. And that, you know, the other school of thought is that, hey, you should be able to just do it. You should be good enough. You should be able to find that balance in yourself, you know. And I agree with that 100%, because I'm big on self-taught, being self-taught. I have taught myself almost everything that I've learned. I learned a bit in college, but I didn't learn the things that I necessarily felt like I wanted to learn. This is also me trying to find. I didn't want it to be at night. I did a comp where it was at night, and I just felt it was just too cliche. I was like, what about this? What if this guy is doing this shit in the day? Like, how cool would that be? He's just a brutal ass guy, just going around and he's a thug. He's just mashing people's heads. He's just cleaning out the garbage basically with his bare hands. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of messing around using similar colors around, and this is kind of a screen printer approach to art, where you build in layers and you use the same color here as you do there, because in screen printing art, um, like posters and stuff and t-shirts, it's all about isolating colors and using them as best you can, as far as you can. And that's kind of what I got going on here. It's kind of this weird uh, technique that I've kind of stuck myself into, I guess. I think it's interesting. I guess I think it's an interesting approach to doing it. I guess I could probably easily just go ape shit and render them out and make them look real. I just didn't really see the value in that necessarily. Yeah, just using the hue saturation, just adjusting things and just trying to find it. It's still not working for me, and I'm kind of feeling a bit deflated. I kind of get somewhere, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll put some stuff in the foreground. Like, nah, it feels so flat. But I felt, this is another problem with the way I do it. It's like, well, the line work's done. I can go all the way back and adjust the line work, but then I got to go and fix everything else, every layer up. It's like a building. Once you build that ground floor, you got to kind of commit to it, and it's silly. I think one of my friends said, why convert, like, why stick to that, Um, but I think what I love about all this is the ability the range of adjustment and the ability to go back and forth. And somebody that's watching this might have a better way for me to do this. And if you do, my name's Ash Thorp, and you should contact me and school me because I would love to hear some tips. I'm all ears. I love learning from everybody. I think everybody can learn something from somebody, good or bad. And here I am, just doing highlights, popping the format a bit. And I honestly probably could have stopped close to this, or probably could have. But I felt, like I said, I wanted to go even further. And um, I think this, like I said, I think it's about three nights. So I would do all my other jobs through the day, and then I would work on this for 4 or 5 hours a night. It's like total, like, yeah, about 12 hours, probably 10 or 12 hours, start to finish, which is a ton of time. I don't usually spend that much time on a piece, but as you can see, this got a lot of work to it. Here's I thought I love different textures, and his name's Gustav Klimt. Has just beautiful textures of fabrics in his paintings, and that's the big thing that I love about his work. I mean, that he's great at many things, obviously, but I thought it'd be kind of cool, and it reminded me of like the Joker. I was like, what if he had like some kind of interesting inner lining? So I didn't show it, but I don't think it's super necessary because it probably makes sense what I just did. But I widened it. I figured, you know what? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go crazy and I'm gonna do it right, and I'm gonna go full spread in the magazine. I was like, who do I think I am doing that? But I felt that the piece deserved it. I felt like it called for it. And I sized him up quite a bit. He's pretty big now. He's probably closer to 8 feet tall. He's a bit of a beast. Maybe he's like, engineered a bit. Maybe he's kind of like a replicant or something. Who knows? I'm still developing the story, and maybe this will become a graphic novel or something. This could be the start of something cool. And it's all recorded. It should be kind of fun. But yeah, so I'm going back in, and I made him a bit bigger, so I got to fill in the gaps of the line work that are missing now because of that. And I do go back and fix all this sign crap because I can't, I've drawn it like twice now, and it's not right. And I'll be honest with you guys, I drew like um, probably 5 or 6 different color options, and I didn't like any of them. This is getting closer to what I wanted, and I don't know necessarily how I picked it or how I discovered it. I just felt I wanted some kind of warmer colors. I wanted it to be like cyberpunk, but in the day. Like, come on, this city's got to Gotta have a sun. You gotta have a little bit of sun. I mean, at the bottom of these buildings, I'm sure it gets dark. Obviously, because you're just. It's like you're in the Amazon, but you're surrounded by human mess. But he's up top. He's up high where he can get a view, and maybe it's not horrible. So, what an interesting thought. Cyberpunk without dark and guns. How cool is that? And I like doing that kind of stuff. I like thinking about things a little bit differently. It's like making a soup, put all kinds of different stuff in there. Just kind of free-handed the letters. Didn't have a path to them. Like I said, I'm more formally known and trained in design, so I'm quite a bit of a stickler for fonts, and I don't even know how this came about. I like this letter form. I felt like it worked. It had a bit of a bevel, and that way I can give it some dimensionality, and it would kind of fit in with all the extra details. I thought it'd be cool if this thing was just haphazardly put together and constantly like remodeled and refurbished and rebuilt. And so I'm just going in there and I'm continuing the line work of which I started from the background, and I'm going through and I'm cleaning up everything else. This rough, loose sketch, and look how loose it is, guys. It's extremely loose. Just me not really having I have a general feel, and then I gotta go in and kind of like clean it all up. And I like each stage. I really enjoy each stage. The stage that you see that is lower in opacity, I love that part. It's that loose, rough, energetic part. It's like, maybe you can look at it like the analogy of a child growing up. It's a bit crazy and wild with a lot of energy in the beginning. And then as it grows up and matures, it slows down and it becomes more detailed and more multi-plane. And this is just how my brain thinks and works. It might sound a bit crazy, but this is just kind of how I build my worlds. I kind of relate things to life. And I think that there's a lot of full circles in life. There's a lot of connectivity in the world around us, and I love relating that to art and story. I think because if whether you know it or not, there's a lot of fundamental similarities in the world around us, and a lot of good storytellers know that, and they use that, and they play off of that. And I think you can relate it a lot to art because, like I said before, I think art's like one of those defining truths in this world that still holds up. And besides this subjective fine art culture and stuff, which is it's got its own thing going on. But when we're creating worlds and we're doing this stuff, it has to live within a certain respect of reality, or else it just kind of silly. Unless it's pulled off, Mobius is a genius at that kind of stuff. And I don't use that word all the time, but I feel that he really nailed that nice balance. I'm a big fan of his work. I think it probably shows, probably too much. I'm also a big fan of Otomo's work, and that's kind of one thing that I loved about his work is he would just put immense detail and life into his backgrounds. And maybe I'm paying a little bit of a homage to his world and the things that he created, because I just feel like what he created was just so beautiful. It's one of my favorite works of art. It's his comic series and the anime itself. It's a huge inspiration for me, and that's why I chose to do the Akira pieces. I felt like if I was going to dedicate time to something, it would be something I loved and I enjoyed, because that would get me through the hard parts. And maybe this is the same kind of thing. His left foot is still not fixed, and it's pissing me off. I'll eventually fix it because he looks like he's pigeon-toed, and it's really annoying. But I ground him into the background better and stuff. But right now I'm just concerned on fixing all the line work, and I got a lot more line work to do, and I have to do all the letters, and the L's wrong. I don't think I fixed it right, but maybe it's okay. It's off a little bit. It's cocked up a little bit. And perspective, I use a little bit of perspective. I don't know I don't know how to explain how I know perspective and if it's right or not. I just can kind of tell. I guess I can just see it, and I don't think it's necessarily exactly right, but feels good to me. So I guess that's okay. I didn't have any like I didn't draw any like crazy lines or write out a grid and transpose it into it. You can do that, and that's great. But maybe I didn't want to, maybe I wanted the error, the artistic error. And sometimes I'll do it, and sometimes I won't. And it's just adding extra little details. I think that, you know, drawing, making the straight lines is all good, but, you know, gotta continue that beautiful quality to the line work. And you'll see I'll go over the straight line again to kind of make it less perfect and mess with it a bit. Yeah, I'm just moving along, just using the eraser and moving, going in between things, and uh, I feel like nothing is, if you go and sit in a city and you look around, uh, and I guess that's spawning my love for a background. Um, there's this anime I just recently got really into animation, and I love Japanese animation, and I think it's called Tekken Kinkri, and the backgrounds in it are phenomenal. And it's yeah, Tekken Kinkreet, and the backgrounds are really phenomenal in it, and it was kind of an inspiration for me, seeing the artist's work and be like, damn, he really brings his backgrounds to life. They're even more lively than the character, and I just want to look at those almost more. And to me, I think that's a huge accomplishment because the character themselves are the breadwinners of the image usually. They're the ones conveying the information or taking you along the story. But why not have the backgrounds just as strong, and all those little details. I think it's the same brush size too. I just kind of don't put as much pressure, and since it doesn't have the transfer option um, on it allows me to just kind of dither out the line weight quality based off of how much pressure I put down on it. Yeah. And the way I came up with Lost Boy, the name and the letters, it was just I was like, well, I have this much space, and I gotta make it, say certain something. I have 7 letters, and I had kind of an idea in my head. I just hadn't been able to nail it, and I figured Lost Boy kind of came to my mind. I felt like I was thinking about Captain Hook too, to be honest. I was thinking Lost Boys. I was like, what about a bandit of rotten mischief? Guys, what if we follow this tale? And but I also was thinking that maybe it would be more about humanity, and the further we get to answering the questions of what we are looking for, the further away we go. And this is how I think. I think and just try to think outside the box. It's not even like I try, just this is how I think. And so Lost Boy kind of spawned from that, and I felt that I just wanted to have a juxtapose of just interesting things, kind of a hodgepodge of signs and languages and technologies and old and new and aged and yeah, these are just like I'm taking cues from things that I love, like I mentioned earlier, Star Wars. The Millennium Falcon is like, it's it's beautiful at first sight, but it's just a big hunk of junk, and that's what's cool about it. It's like a beat up hot rod, and I love that. I love that George had that ability to see that and bring that to sci-fi. I think it's brilliant. And Ridley with Blade Runner too. world creators. And I'm a huge fan of film and animation, and I just try to bring these kind of things that I love from that world to this. So yeah, I've doubled up the line layer, I think, going back and trying to find out where I want it to be. And you see how when I doubt or I want to get a better horizon view, I just kind of zoom it out, look at it from afar, observe it, let my brain think about it. And that's when my brain's like, okay, it's time to add a little bit of lines here. And I was like, I'm getting kind of tired of this sign. And I do that a lot in the art. Sometimes I feel like it's best to not force certain things, but I had a deadline with this. I wanted to get it done in time, and I got so much stuff going on, so I wanted to make sure that I gave it proper attention, and I knew I wanted to record uh, vocals over this because I don't know if it would make much sense to somebody, and I would feel bad for making somebody confused as to how the heck I'm doing this, and I don't know the skill set of who's listening, so. But honestly, as you can tell, as we're going through this, it's all pretty similar, pretty simple, simple brush, and it's what I'm trying to get at a lot with this is like it's about an idea, it's about building a world, and taking those tools, using them, it's like using a car and going traveling, and this is what Photoshop is doing, and that's what I'm in, just in Photoshop. That's just using transpose. Just adjusting it. Not even transpose actually, I think it's just you grabbing the lasso and moving it around a little bit. Boom, there it is, Lost Boy. Now I'm just gonna noodle and go crazy, and then yeah, I'm just gonna try and figure out like, well, what if the power supply was this big kind of like wonky looking thing that they couldn't really have strapped to the building. They had to maybe have it over there underneath the S and the O. And it's just world building stuff, just being random, thinking kind of far out there. An artist that I really admire because of his attention to detail in worlds is obviously Jeff Darrow, and then also George Hull, and their work on The Matrix is a big inspiration for me as well. Just the level of detail and attention to the world. And I think the Wachowskis were spot on with that for The Matrix, you know. And always, why just have one wire? Why not to have an adjoining case of wires? And I look at like a lot of my Ghost in the Shell magazines, or I mean comic books and stuff too. It's like the illustrator for that, Shiro, he just has an abundance of beautiful lines and wires and technology, and it all just makes sense. It all just kind of nicely just comes together perfectly, and I love that. And like I said, I'm just taking bits and pieces from all the things that I love, and there's a lot of things. I'm a big fan of Frank Miller's and Mike Mignola's, and yeah, there's just so many great talents out there, and these are just artists, illustrators and stuff. But they're also world creators. Like I love the story of Hellboy. I love that character. Maybe I can bring in some of that stuff into Lost Boy, the mythos behind it. So that layer of the color, I decided just to go kind of a different route and just flatten it all into one layer and kind of treat it and paint it and not isolate things and take forever doing that, and just treat it kind of like I would a painting. And the line work is in layers above it, and the line work is set to multiply, I believe, so that it goes through and easily fades through and over and transparent over the colors, so that you can just see the color coming through. again, using the hue saturation. I can do, you can do like direct color replacement. When I fill a whole layer, fill a color, it's Command Delete, and whatever color is in your palette, it fills it up. So the little icon of color over there on the left, and when I hit the X key, it switches between the front and the back color. So right now, if I hit X key, it would have that mustardy color instead of that maroon. But yeah, I'm just doing cleanup now. Now it's time to just clean up all this mess that I've created, but capture that look and feel. And this feels rather like San Francisco in certain parts, kind of. If that makes any sense. Here it is, I'm fixing the guy, moving him down a little bit. I'm going down and trying to find where the problem is. And it's the line work, so I'm gonna, instead of moving him down and have to do all that work where I have to go paint that whole thing behind him, I'm just gonna grab that little section of floor, delete it, move this thing, fix his foot. Yay, finally did it. It's killing me. And it's funny to see things later on, you know. And that's what I was talking about, going back to it again, is art is honest, and if you're not doing it right, or if you're not being honest with yourself, your art isn't honest, and therefore it's not good or respected, because nobody likes dishonesty. I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I got some paper texture in there. I have a texture layer. This will all be in the files, I believe, in the DVD along with the magazine, so you guys can tumble through there. But yeah, put a little bit of texture on there as I'm creating it, I believe. Just so it makes me feel like I'm drawing on paper. I'm just fooling myself. But I'm having fun with it though. Yeah, just adding age and angles and shape and dynamics to each little bit. It's just fun stuff. You know, like what if this thing connects like this and has a joint that looks like this and it's a swivel, and if it's windy up there it has to be able to move a little bit, it can't be rigid, and you know, all these kind of things. If you want to get into this kind of stuff and you don't know where to start, how about you go walk around a city and just draw everything that you see. Fill up your visual library. Just fill it, you know, fill up your mind with the things that you're noticing. For a moment there, I felt like, was he too big? And I was like, nah, he's just about right. I didn't want to move him again, to be honest. And I wasn't being lazy. I felt like it was fine. I was just noodling a little too much. And I fought a lot with getting him in there and how I was going to do it. And this was, oh man, it was a challenge. I was like, maybe I make him a different color. Like he's getting hit by another color that's just making him pop. And see how I do it just really loosely and roughly. And I said, nope, that blue is horrible. And I'm like, well, let me just, you know, try out some other colors. That's the color comp from the previous file. I'd taken it a little bit further. But I was like, well, I like that. I like the way that looks. It's okay to have them kind of fade into the background a bit. And here's me just messing along, just trying to find that balance of where I'm going here. And I don't know if I realized that it looked like he just threw up all over himself with the white. I just like the look of it, so I'm just going through the layers, sometimes reminding myself, and I can't tell when and when I start and when I stop on this piece. I just go back and forth until I feel it's right. But you know, when I stop at night and then I come back the next day, I often see all the issues. They're just right in my face. Right now he's kind of pushing his lower lip out. He looks kind of stupid. So I fixed that. And then I was like, well, let me maybe give him a mohawk. Maybe take some of his hair out on the side. And that's kind of expected. but sometimes I don't mind letting a couple things slide. And here's I'm kind of getting closer in on this stuff. But you notice I don't really go past this, because if I do, I'm opening up a world of pain, and the time it takes me to finish at that level, it's like double the resolution. Because I gotta go in there and just pixel mash the heck out of each little sliver of information. So I try to not kill myself, basically. And you guys are going to see it smaller, and then it's going to be printed, so it's going to be have a bit of noise. So a lot of that work is just going to get lost anyways. And knowing that, I felt like, why punish myself? Why do that? It's kind of cool having all these extra little bits on him, because it allows me to break the color and the shape and the form. If you imagine if you didn't have these like leg straps, I don't necessarily know what they are, like seat belts on his leg, but they're cool device mechanisms for the overall design and function and form of what he's got going on, and it cuts the shape nicely. It allows me to cut it up, and it's another spot on his body that allows it to make it special. If it was just plain clothes, it wouldn't be like that, which I love that, don't get me wrong, I love simplicity. But this world and this art and this style, it's time to go crazy. And I'm just messing around. I decided that I wanted to have some rim light and stuff coming out, artificial light hitting the back of his leg there. And like I said, there's that fine line between like a rendering and then filling in shapes for graphic novel style. And it quickly, for me, can get lost between that line between the two of those. And I still haven't perfected it or figured it out. And I got a ton of work to do to get there. I think color for me it's just going to be a journey. And maybe that's just my outlook on it. Maybe it'll be easy. And maybe I just got to change my wording about and make it sound like it'll be something that'll be possible to do without being painful. But yeah, it's a challenge. I don't have you notice I have the F key activated, and if you hit the F key and you're in Photoshop and you get a gray background and you don't like that, and you like that, like how I have it in black, you just go into your system preferences in Photoshop, and I believe it's under display, and it allows you to adjust the tone and color of um, each level of hitting F, because one F will just take out all the background, but it'll also leave the tools around you, and then the other F is at this stage where I'm just drawing on the thing. There's nothing inhibiting me. Sometimes I don't like to have all that junk in the way, especially if I don't need it. Why have that? It's crazy to see this all just kind of rushed along, and it's funny to see things like all come together after the fact. It'd be cool to have gotten an email with this file prior, saying, oh, okay, this is how I did it. But would the fun be in that? I think the challenge is what makes it fun, obviously. I'm just trying to push his forms, push his shape a bit. I go in further and further and further. Yeah, I should put some blood. Be some blood coming up soon. Blood. I love blood. I don't think it would be cool without it. There it is. Told you. I just got done beating somebody's ass, and it's showing. He's dripping off his arm. I really love the way that red goes against that greenish blue. It's like similar in value, but it just clashes. And this is the kind of coloring that I love. I just love that crazy clashing color. Stuff that just doesn't and shouldn't naturally fit together. I just love it. To me, that's where it's at with the color. And perhaps the more I do these, obviously I'll discover the colors that I like that work together that are clashing, and vice versa. I mean, why not just have blood all over his shirt too? Like a big smear, like he just headbutted somebody and they just kind of fell right on his chest and slid down, you know? And when you illustrate your stuff, think like this. Think about your world. It'll make your work so much better. Like I mentioned prior, I used to think about just drawing something cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's all you care about, do that. But if you want to take your stuff to the next level, and if you're seeing artists do stuff that you just are that they're just on that other next stage, trust me, they're making their own worlds because it shows. When an artist is really passionate and focused on their own creations, it shows. It's like, right in your face. I feel I have a hard time, and I probably will try not to draw for clients. I'm trying to disconnect my work life with my illustration life, as long as I can to preserve it, because I just feel like a kid again, to be honest. Yeah, look at those polka dots. Freaking love that. It's just fun. There's a lot of lines right here. You just can't really see them, unfortunately. I drew like a ton of lines, like it was made out of a different type of material, like a corduroy material of some sort. Yeah, just and sometimes not everything's meant to be seen completely. It's like those little things that I like for the viewer that is paying attention. You can see it closely. I'm just trying to find how to make them look like they're kind of connected, but his shirt's all jammed up together, so. Yeah, and I decide I don't like this fill light or this bounce light or whatever you call it on his legs. I'm gonna fix that too. Just felt silly, especially now that his knees are all bloody, and I like the way it looks like it's just like he's just crushing dudes, and it's just been dripping down. I didn't want to have it on his thighs too. Maybe he's wiping his hands off or something. Yeah, but if you can narrate your illustration and you can think outside the box instead of just looking at somebody's art like CG Hub or something, be like, oh, I want to just draw that same kind of thing. You can really think about a story. Your art's going to just step up to the next realm. And you're going to start thinking of worlds, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing so. Trust me, because I'm doing it right now. I'm just having fun doing it. And this is one part I feel is really rewarding, is doing an outline. And I think no, did I focus on it only on the rim light? I guess I do. But yeah, it really pops him now. He's very much in front of the background. And I'm just noodling. I'm just going along it. I think I'm finally feeling like, oh, this is okay. I don't know about the value, but it's okay. Perhaps his jacket is actually a really dark red, but in this light, in this scheme, it comes across as like this bright pink kind of, I don't know. It's not black. but maybe it's the light scenario that's doing it. It's brightening it up. And it shouldn't be just like this simple, clean black thing. For a minute there, and it's off center, I thought, hey, it'd be kind of cool not to just have it centered. Maybe just have it adjusted a little bit. The little trick you just saw there is I go to the top of my file and I hit Command, Option, Shift, and E all at the same time, and that takes all those layers and flattens it up at the top and leaves all the other layers undestructed. And I go into Lens Blur filter effect, and depending on however I want it to be, I set it to like maybe 20% or something, and then I take that, and what it is basically all the art flattened and it's blurred, and then I set that to I think soft light, and it gives it that really cool old anime style cell looking thing because it dithers everything out, and I think it's in the final. How I figured that out, I don't know, and that's what I'm talking about. It's just those happy accidents, having fun, messing around, and see how much more intense the colors get from it. We're getting closer. Yeah, I thought maybe do a gradient in here, pushing behind it, do some false light. Kind of works. I think I took it out of the final, but maybe I'll put it back in. It looks good from this far away. See like how messy my file is. I'm ridiculous. It's just, and I should have totally tried to be cautious of it, but uh, at the same time, I'm trying not to hinder myself in what I'm doing. I want it to feel natural, and the most important thing for me was to make something cool, because at the end of the day, even if you guys didn't get a total learning lesson out of it, maybe you guys would be like, well, at least I like the piece, you know. So that was the most important thing. I mean, obviously, I don't want to sound selfish. I had my intentions to. I hope that you guys are learning something from this, you know. But my intentions were focused on making this cool, you know. It's in a magazine. I want it to be good. Here it goes. I'm going crazy. Just filling in all the details, making that background work well. Um, Changing the hue and saturation of certain things and the value. And I use the eyedropper a ton. I just hit I use I. That's the hotkey for eyedropper. I use it a ton. I'm like, I kind of just go from what's capturing my attention most over here, and then fill that, and back over there, and fill in that. And maybe it's got some rust to it, and got some bits of droplet kind of stuff going on. I kind of miss those digital artifacts back there that I just filled in. I just took the lasso tool and I hit Command Delete after selecting the actual color with the eyedropper of the background, so it just fills it in, that mustard looking color. I don't even know what color that is. It's like a really ugly green. Maybe that's the sky. It's just glowing. It's gross. Kind of like it. The air in LA. The disgusting smog. I'm just filling those in, filling those shapes in. Yeah. Maybe some of the panels have lost some of their paint and they're kind of falling off, or they're just kind of exposed themselves a little bit. So maybe the paint underneath it is that pink. And like I said prior to, it's just I'm just using the eyedropper. I was gonna try and get a little fancy here and use some gradients, and I didn't think it worked. And I was being silly. But I'm always just trying to explore it and try things out. I'm going through layers and cleaning them up and deleting them and going back and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. and it starts to lose my love, as I go, and then I have to pull it back and kind of try and find it. We're at the home stretch here, though. Getting there. Almost done. See that dithering? That look? It's like it's kind of like it's sitting on, like the ink is sitting on cellophane or whatever you call it, the plastic. And we're projecting a camera down through it, and it's casting a little bit of a shadow, which is softening the edge. It's all those little details. And I don't know how the hell I found that out. I just kind of figured it out. And I figure things out by failing a lot and finding out like what I like. Those colors are so bright and ridiculous. It's just like it's this weird, ugly creature, you know? If you didn't look at it as a sign, it would just be this ugly, robotic, bright, flamboyant creature. A big flamboyant creature sign thing. Yeah, it's capturing that edge. Like I said, this really helps. It helps a ton. It's almost like it has to be done with the line work and the coloring style. Man, I wish I could draw it this fast. It looks so cool being drawn this fast. It's, yeah, definitely 3 times the speed at least. Yeah, this is another part that I love tremendously is this top layer of just detail, little edges catching light. It really brings it all home for me. Using the eyedropper, fixing up his visor. Like at his jacket, I decided to just go pink. What a badass. A pink leather jacket with uh, maroon and purple polka dots inside. That's freaking cool. If you can pull off that jacket, then you deserve to do whatever the hell you want. And he obviously is doing it. So yeah, I decided that third eye kind of thing. It's not working. I'm gonna keep it cyberpunk and keep it old school. There's an animation I really love. It's called Cyber City Oedo 808. I think that's what it is. And it's awesome. Old anime cyberpunk stuff. If you get a chance, you should check it out. It also inspired this. Yeah, there's some bounce light right there. Kind of captures cheekbones and stuff. Pushes his form a bit. Or I guess you would call that, what is that? I guess rim light or something? I don't know. It's opposite to the core shadow that's in the center giving his face form. That's all I know. I forget the names of these things. I just kind of know what they are. Just little meticulous details that nobody's going to see. But I'm being a nerd, having fun. It's coming along. That capture the outlines of his arms, and I was like, well, let me just add a little bit more outline to those areas because they were getting lost. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to see everything from afar and add all the details and the things that I love and that I want to put in there. I still feel like there's a lot of things that need to be fixed in it, but contrary to what I had said before, like getting the work done and me just completing things, sometimes it's good to just know when it's okay to let things go. I think John Lasseter, the one of the founders of Pixar, said that their movies are never finished; they just release them. I think that's the same for art. I think at least this piece has that same quality. It's just like it's not necessarily done. I don't think it'll ever be done. I could sit there and noodle. Every time I get better, I find a new trick, I can just apply it to it. But I gotta finish it somehow, someday. And there's the blur focus thing talking about. Set that to lighten, mask it, and maybe I'm trying to just pop some of the light behind it. Maybe some of the signs are glowing. Yeah, I just didn't like it. I felt too forced and silly. So I'd rather do without that kind of stuff, you know. Here's me adding noise. I fill the layer with black. I go to filter, then noise, then add noise. And I just kind of do it until it feels right. Doing noise, putting the noise in there makes it feel like film, obviously. But it softens the line weight, which I like. There's a lot of atmosphere going on here. I think I pull a lot of that out. Pull a lot of that out. You know, oftentimes I go like, you know, way too far and then I pull it back. And it's almost there. Put my signature in at the end here. I don't know if it's on the recording. But yeah, it's almost done for what it is. So this is the illustration for Lost Boy. And thanks for listening, guys. I hope you guys dig it. Uh, yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. Feel free to reach out and say hello. Cheers.